America's Freedom, War, Society, and Nation-Building Declaration of Independence, defining the Revolution. On July 4th, 1776, after months of debate within the Second Continental Congress, the colonies formally announced their separation from Britain through the Declaration of Independence. This was a momentous and irreversible step, transforming a protest for rights into a war for national sovereignty, primarily authored by a young Thomas Jefferson, with input from the Committee of Five, including John Adams and Benjamin Franklin. The document drew upon Enlightenment principles espoused by thinkers like John Locke. It was structured in three parts: a preamble articulating a universal philosophy of human rights, a long list of specific grievances against King George III, and the final decisive Declaration of Independence. It asserted that all men are created equal, with inherent rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that governments derive their power from the consent of the governed. This radical idea gave the people the right to overthrow tyrannical governments. More than just a legal document, the Declaration was a powerful piece of propaganda. It galvanized both domestic and international support for the revolutionary cause, framing the conflict not as a civil dispute, but as a universal struggle for freedom. The Revolutionary War campaigns and alliances. The military conflict unfolded over 8 long years of brutal battles, shifting fortunes, and vital diplomatic alliances. The Continental Army, led by General George Washington, faced the world's most formidable military power. After early clashes at Lexington, Concord, and Bunker Hill, the war escalated. A crucial turning point came at the Battle of Saratoga in 1777. The American victory, led by Generals Horatio Gates and Benedict Arnold, convinced France that the rebellion was viable. This secured a formal alliance, bringing essential naval support, troops, and funding. Yet victory was not assured. The brutal winter at Valley Forge in 1777-78 tested the Army's very existence. Facing starvation, disease, and desertion, Washington's army survived and was transformed into a disciplined fighting force, thanks to the rigorous training implemented by the Prussian officer Baron von Steuben. The war's climax arrived at the Siege of Yorktown in 1781. A combined Franco-American force trapped British General Cornwallis's army against the sea, while the French fleet blocked any escape or reinforcement. His surrender effectively concluded major hostilities and secured American independence on the battlefield. Societal impact: women, African Americans, and Native Americans. The war was a society-wide effort. Women, often called camp followers, actively contributed by provisioning troops, nursing the wounded, and acting as spies. On the home front, they managed farms and businesses, keeping the colonial economy afloat. Figures like Abigail Adams famously urged her husband John to remember the ladies in the new laws, advocating early for women's rights. For African Americans, the war presented a complex and perilous choice. Thousands, both free and enslaved, fought for the Patriots, inspired by the rhetoric of liberty. However, many more sided with the British, who offered emancipation in exchange for service in what became known as Lord Dunmore's Ethiopian Regiment. Native American tribes, caught between two expanding powers, largely sided with Britain, viewing the crown as a buffer against relentless colonial encroachment on their lands. The American victory proved disastrous for them, leading to significant losses, broken treaties, and accelerated displacement as the new nation expanded westward. Revolutionary ideals and contradictions. The revolution championed radical new ideals of republicanism, which emphasized civic virtue, public service, and a government accountable to its citizens. It led to expanded political participation for many, but its promise of liberty was tragically incomplete. The unalienable rights, so eloquently expressed in the Declaration, primarily extended to white, property-owning males. Women, enslaved people, and Native Americans remained largely marginalized. This profound contradiction between the nation's ideals and its reality would fuel centuries of struggle in later reform movements, from abolitionism to women's suffrage. Nation building. Governance. After the war, with independence won, the challenge became building a nation. The fledgling country initially struggled under the Articles of Confederation, its first constitution. It created a weak central government that couldn't effectively tax, regulate commerce, or raise an army, leading to economic turmoil and events like Shays' Rebellion. Recognizing the system's failure, delegates convened for the 1787 Constitutional Convention. The resulting United States Constitution established a stronger federal government with three distinct branches, creating a delicate balance between federal and state powers. To address fears of tyranny, the Bill of Rights was added, a series of 10 amendments to safeguard individual liberties. These foundational documents, born from compromise and intense debate, laid a framework for enduring governance that could adapt and evolve over time. International impact and legacy. The American experiment sent shockwaves across the globe. The revolution's success inspired subsequent revolutionary movements, most notably the French Revolution of 1789 and the numerous independence struggles in Latin America during the early 19th century. It symbolized a paradigm shift away from monarchy and toward self-determination and democratic governance. The American Revolution demonstrated that the philosophical ideals of the Enlightenment were not just abstract theories. They could be put into practice to reshape political landscapes and create new nations founded on the will of the people. Conclusion. The American Revolution was far more than a war. It was a complex confluence of military conflict, political theory, and profound social transformation. It forged a new country dedicated, albeit imperfectly, to the principles of liberty and democracy. Its legacy is not a static monument, but a dynamic and ongoing conversation, an inspiring yet challenging narrative of freedom's pursuit that continues to resonate worldwide. Part 2, America's Freedom, War, Society, and Nation Building, Declaration of Independence, Defining the Revolution. On July 4, 1776, in the midst of a burgeoning war, the Second Continental Congress took a monumental step. They formally adopted the Declaration of Independence, a document that would not only sever ties with Great Britain, but also articulate a new philosophy of governance. This was not merely a declaration of war, it was a declaration of a new world order, penned primarily by Thomas Jefferson in Philadelphia's sweltering summer heat. The delegates who signed it were acutely aware they were committing an act of treason against the British Crown, risking their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor for the cause of liberty. The Declaration's power lay in its synthesis of Enlightenment ideals. Drawing on the English philosopher John Locke's concept of natural rights, it asserted that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. From Montesquieu, it borrowed the idea of separated powers to prevent tyranny. And from Rousseau, it embraced the notion of a social contract. The document's most famous line, that all men are created equal with unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, became a profound, if imperfectly applied, statement of human dignity. Beyond its philosophical preamble, the Declaration served as a detailed indictment of King George III. It cataloged a long list of abuses, from imposing taxes without consent and obstructing justice to quartering troops in colonial homes. By methodically listing these grievances, it justified the colonies' right to dissolve their political connections with Britain. In doing so, it transformed a regional rebellion over taxes into a universal struggle for self-determination and liberty, inspiring future generations around the globe. Revolutionary War, campaigns and alliances. The war for independence was a long and arduous struggle, fought across a vast and varied landscape. The conflict unfolded on multiple fronts: military, diplomatic, and political, with the Continental Army facing the world's most formidable military power. Its key moments include Battle of Saratoga, 1777, a major turning point. American forces under General Horatio Gates surrounded and captured an entire British army led by General John Burgoyne. This decisive victory shattered the myth of British invincibility and, crucially, convinced France that the American cause was viable. The resulting Franco-American alliance provided the Patriots with essential funds, troops, and, most importantly, naval power that would prove critical in the war's final stages. Winter at Valley Forge, 1777-78, following defeats near Philadelphia, Washington's exhausted army endured a winter of severe hardship. Thousands suffered from starvation, disease, and exposure. Yet, this period became a crucible of transformation. The Prussian drill master Baron von Steuben arrived and implemented a rigorous training program, instilling discipline, tactical skill, and a renewed sense of purpose. The army that emerged from Valley Forge was a stronger, more professional force, capable of meeting the British in open combat. Siege of Yorktown, 1781, the war's climax. A masterful coordination of American and French forces trapped a large British army under Lord Cornwallis on the Virginia coast, while Washington's and Rochambeau's armies laid siege by land. The French fleet under Admiral de Grasse blockaded Chesapeake Bay, preventing British rescue or escape by sea. Cut off and overwhelmed, Cornwallis surrendered, effectively ending major hostilities and sealing America's victory. Treaty of Paris, 1783. 2 years after Yorktown, the war officially concluded with the signing of the Treaty of Paris. Negotiated by Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, and John Jay, the treaty saw Britain formally recognize the United States as a sovereign nation. It also granted the new country vast territories, extending its boundaries west to the Mississippi River, north to the Great Lakes, and south to Florida, setting the stage for westward expansion. Societal impact, roles, and voices emerging. Women. The revolution profoundly impacted the lives of women who stepped far beyond traditional domestic roles. They managed farms and businesses while men were away at war, organized boycotts of British goods, and served the Continental Army as camp followers, acting as nurses, cooks, and spies. Figures like Abigail Adams famously urged her husband John to remember the ladies in the new laws. A powerful early call for women's rights and political representation, even if it would take another century and a half to be realized. African Americans, the war's rhetoric of liberty created a complex and contradictory situation for African Americans. About 5,000 free and enslaved black men fought for the patriot cause, hoping their service would lead to freedom and greater rights. Simultaneously, the British offered freedom to any enslaved person who joined their side, leading thousands to escape to British lines. Despite their contributions, the war's end did not bring an end to slavery. The institution remained deeply entrenched, especially in the South, sowing the seeds of the future abolitionist struggles that would one day tear the nation apart. Native Americans. For Native American tribes, the Revolution was a disastrous conflict. Caught between two powers, most tribes like the Iroquois Confederacy, were fractured by divided loyalties, many allied with the British, hoping to protect their ancestral lands from encroaching American settlers. With the British defeat, they lost a key ally and were left to face an expansionist United States alone. The Treaty of Paris largely ignored their claims, leading to further displacement, broken treaties, and decades of conflict. Revolutionary ideals and contradictions. The Revolution championed the radical ideals of republicanism, emphasizing civic virtue, public participation, and the rule of law over the rule of a monarch. It established a government accountable to its citizens. Yet, the promise of liberty was not extended to all. The expansion of rights was limited primarily to white male property owners. Women, enslaved people, and Native Americans remained largely excluded from the political process, highlighting the profound tensions between the nation's founding ideals and its social realities, contradictions that would fuel future social justice movements in America. Nation-building post-war governance. The Revolutionary War birthed a new nation, but one that now faced the immense challenge of self-governance. The first attempt, the Articles of Confederation, created a league of friendship among the states. However, it established a weak central government that lacked the power to tax, regulate commerce, or raise a national army, making it ill-equipped to handle the nation's mounting debts and security threats. These growing economic and security challenges, exemplified by events like Shays' Rebellion, led leaders to call for the Constitutional Convention in 1787. The resulting U.S. Constitution forged a more powerful federal system with a sophisticated balance of power between the federal government and the states, and among the three branches of government. To address fears of federal overreach, the Bill of Rights was added in 1791, guaranteeing essential protections for individual freedoms like speech, religion, and assembly, and curbing potential governmental abuses, global influence, and legacy. The American Revolution's success sent shockwaves across the world. It was the first successful colonial uprising against a European empire and served as a powerful catalyst for revolutions in France, Haiti, and across Latin America. It provided a tangible example of how Enlightenment ideals could be put into practice to reshape political realities. The concepts of popular sovereignty, natural rights, and written constitutions became powerful tools for those challenging monarchical and colonial rule, inspiring democratic movements globally for centuries to come. Conclusion: the American Revolution was more than a war. It was an epical event that redefined the very concepts of governance, sovereignty, and human rights. It was a complex tapestry woven from military struggle, bold ideological innovation, and profound social transformation, all of which combined to birth a new republic. While it laid the foundational ideals of liberty and democracy that would inspire millions, it also exposed deep-seated contradictions around equality and inclusion. These tensions remain central to America's ongoing story, a continuous effort to live up to its founding principles. The Revolution's legacy endures as both a beacon and a challenge, shaping democratic aspirations and debates not just in America but worldwide.